The death of Kobe Bryant is one that we are still dealing with, even though it's getting closer to a year since he has passed. His passing was random, sudden, and so unexpected that people thought it was a prank or a hack on a news site when the word first broke. But while many will mourn his death, many more will look at his life and legacy on and off the court and judge him for what he did and didn't do. But what is the complicated legacy of Kobe Bryant? Allow us to show you the real reason Kobe Bryant left the NBA. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 6. His life coming to the NBA. Before we talk about why he left, we need to talk about how he arrived. Kobe Bean Bryant was the son of the former NBA player Joe Jellybean Bryant, who had a decent but not overall impactful career. In fact, he played overseas more than he did in the NBA. Kobe naturally followed in his father's footsteps and was shown to have incredible skills of his own. Kobe Bryant was drafted by the Charlotte Hornets on behalf of the Lakers and did not try, at all, to hide his ambition to surpass the accomplishments of the legendary Michael Jordan, which is ironic for various reasons, but not the least of which was that Jordan would later go on to own the Charlotte Hornets, back then called the Bobcats. He never played for them though, as Charlotte had agreed going into the draft to trade Bryant's rights to Los Angeles in exchange for veteran center Vlade Divac. Now, the trade that made Bryant a Laker was engineered by the team's general manager at the time, Jerry West, who was instantly smitten by Bryant's fearlessness and prodigious talent. As you might recall, the trade was a pretty good one for all the reasons that matter. Number 5. His impact on the Lakers. Over the next 20 seasons, Bryant earned 18 All-Star selections, a regular season Most Valuable Player award in 2008, and 2 NBA Finals MVP awards to go with his 5 championship rings and 2 Olympic gold medals. Despite some issues that we'll discuss in a bit, he remained hugely popular among NBA fans and especially Angelinos, for whom he increasingly became synonymous with the Lakers, the only team, despite a trade demand in 2007, that Bryant ever played for. One of the big reasons why Kobe was so beloved in LA wasn't just because he won, and as noted, he won a lot, but because he had a presence and a force to him that made the team relevant for the first time since Magic Johnson was on the team and led them to 5 NBA titles. Kobe was very different from Magic, but the fans didn't care that much. Kobe was a highlight reel with or without certain key teammates, and he always gave everything he had to the Lakers, and that was honestly a good thing, when it didn't go to his head. Number 4. The Shaq feud. After the death of Kobe, there were a lot of people looking at his legacy and asking what it was truly going to be. This angered a lot of people for the basic reason that many felt they should look at his accomplishments and nothing else. But hey, that's not how it works. You can do all the good in the world, but if you do a reprehensible act, that gets erased. And while he did bring 5 titles to LA, 3 of them were because of the man he drove out of LA, Shaq. As noted, when Kobe came into the NBA, he had a singular goal, to match Michael Jordan, and he and Jordan actually had a close relationship, as he would reveal in The Last Dance. But his early days weren't the easiest because he had more ambition than he did teamwork. The various Lakers tried to rein him in but failed, even when it came to Shaq, who nicknamed him Showboat in a bad way, because of his desire to shoot more than win. By Kobe's 4th season, him and Shaq had gelled enough to go and win 3 titles in 4 seasons, which should have been the beginning of a very long run of titles for the Lakers, but it wasn't meant to be. Kobe grew tired of being in Shaq's shadow, and the two started to clash on and off the court. Phil Jackson tried to keep it together, but it wasn't meant to be. Shaq was traded to the Miami Heat, where he would go and win a title with D. Wade. Kobe would languish for a while before finally getting the help he needed. Conveniently, it was 2 big men to win those final 2 titles. The rivalry between Shaq and Kobe is still one of the biggest stories of the last 20 years of basketball, mainly because, as Shaq noted, after Kobe died, they never made up. They hadn't talked to each other in years, in fact, and that tore Shaq up. Who was right and who was wrong in that feud? Well, it honestly depends on which side you stand on, but it's one that never truly got settled, and that is tragic, and it's partly Kobe's fault.
It got my competitiveness going. Like, I got to learn this game. But then I broke my finger during that year, and then I couldn't play much, and that was it.
So the one thing when I see with you, and I think about like brain and I think focus. Like, you know how so many different things brain can get distracted on, and I'm going to put focus on this and focus on this and focus on this. Do you think one of the edge you had over everybody else was?
Number 3, the incident. While the Shaq feud was a major focal point for Kobe's career, it wasn't the only negative thing against him. Celebrities are known to break the law, and in the case of Kobe Bryant, he allegedly forced himself on a 19-year-old girl. This infamous case happened in Colorado. Kobe apparently forced himself on her while he was staying at the hotel the girl worked at. She filed charges against him, and Kobe was open to admitting that he did indeed sleep with the girl, cheating on his wife in the process. But the problem here was that he claimed it was consensual. To try and repair what had been done in regards to Kobe's image, his legal team went all out to try and discredit the victim, saying that she was lying and that all she really wanted was attention and money from a settlement in the case. This got so bad that she was basically being shamed all over, even though she might have been telling the truth. This case is one of the biggest dark spots in Kobe's career, not the least of which is that she eventually dropped the case. But not everyone was so certain that Kobe was innocent. And given how far the legal team went to try to discredit her, it paints a very interesting picture that he wasn't. And this is why these kinds of cases are so hard to do in court, because victims don't want to come out and say this without clear proof, because it'll appear like they're wanting a payout, or they're afraid to get shamed like this girl was in an attempt to smear their credibility. Kobe never had another incident like this, to be clear, but it doesn't clear up what he may have done, and it further complicates his legacy.
And then I was just killing everyone. And it happened in 2 years. And I wasn't expecting it to happen in 2 years, but it did, because what I had to do was work on the basics and the fundamentals.
Number 2, his persona. As stated in the Shaq feud entry, Kobe had a personality that demanded that he be on top no matter what, no matter who else was around. He wanted to be the best, and he was willing to do what he felt it took to get there. And yeah, he won 5 titles in 20 seasons. That is impressive. But what's not so impressive are all the things he did to try and make himself great. Ask any NBA critic or fan who wasn't a Kobe fan, and you'll hear that Kobe wasn't the best team player. He preferred to shoot first and pass never. That's just who he was. There are an infinite amount of memes out there about how Kobe was never a passer and mocking teammates for wanting to pass him the ball. A great example of this was in one of his final games where he put up 60 points. A great send-off, if you will, and while that is impressive, it took 50 shots to pull it off. Not a great stat line. And he was never, ever afraid to voice his thoughts on teammates and coaches, which led to that 2007 incident where he wanted to be traded because he thought he couldn't win anymore with the organization. They had to scramble to bring in players to ensure that Kobe stayed.
It had a positive impact on you and really made you better long term?
Well, I think it's it challenges who you are as a person. To have to go through something like that, with not only individually but as a family, and then for the organization, the Lakers organization, my teammates.
Number 1, his age and body. But while all these factors led to Kobe having a somewhat complicated legacy, the real reason he left the NBA was because he had gotten old and his body just couldn't perform anymore. Kobe was known for playing through injuries, but his last few seasons were at times painful to watch. He was very slow, his accuracy wasn't there, and the Lakers weren't making it to the playoffs. It's not an insult to be old, and many legends never did 20 NBA seasons. That in itself is incredible. But he knew it was time to go, and so he did. And he supported the Lakers organization all the way until his death. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at Kobe Bryant and the various factors that played both in him leaving the NBA and the legacy that he left behind? How do you personally choose to remember Kobe Bryant? Do some of these factors personally change how you look at him? What do you think was his greatest moment in the NBA? What do you think was his worst? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.